Good morning. As always, I'm going to wait for everybody to get in here, wait till I get my notification on my phone, all of that good stuff. If you are watching the replay, you can probably fast forward through a couple of minutes because normally it's just chat about waiting for people to come in, right? So I'm going to pull up all the information that I need to pull up on my phone this morning. And as you come in, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can let me know where you're from and what you're doing and all of that good stuff. So let me see here. You guys, we are coming off of the 2020 Homesteaders of America virtual conference, and it has just been such an amazing week. All right, I got my stuff up. We are back for the Garden Collab series. Oh, shoot, I forgot some notes that I was going to pull up. Hold on one second. If you are not aware of what the Garden Collab is, it is it's part of the How to Grow Your Own Food series that we are doing. We started that. Let me just talk to you before I get my notes up. We started that back in March. It's either March or May, where, of course, we were in the middle of this crazy pandemic and people wanted to know how to grow their own food. And so we started the How to Grow Your Own Food series, and it was a hit. You guys loved it. You guys were growing food all over the place. If you were joining us for that series and you grew something for the first time because of that series, we would love to hear about it. It's just so encouraging and inspiring to hear from people that are growing their own food simply because they watched a YouTube video. Okay, so that's pretty incredible. So anyhow, we started the garden tour series as an extension of that, so that you guys could actually see a garden in action all year long, and not just one garden, but many gardens all over the place, all over the country and beyond. In some cases, we have a couple of people, I think a couple, just 2 people in Canada, 1 for sure. So this series, there is a new week of collaborators every single week. Now, some of them are, they return every week, which is awesome. Some of them return every other week. Some of them return once a month. Some of them are spread out all over the place. So I'm going to tell you about this week's collaborators, and then we are going to get into a topic this week that I really enjoy because it makes life easy. And I think you're going to enjoy it too. I don't know if any of our collaborators are talking about this, but I for sure wanted to touch on it really quickly. So, all right, this week's collaborators can be found in the description of this video. Make sure you go see their videos, comment on their videos. Let us know which videos you really enjoyed. Now, please keep in mind that we are coming to the end of this season. This series only goes through the middle of December. And gardens are starting to die down. People are really crazy busy right now. So some of our collaborators, because they've been in this for so long, some of them might forget to upload their video. Some of them might upload their video late. So just keep that in mind. Grace upon grace upon grace, please. And if they don't get a video up this week, then I'm sure they have one from a previous recent week that you can watch as well. So this week's list of collaborators are Jamarelle Stewart from Large Family Table. She's here in Virginia with me, but she's more south. Melissa K. Norris, she's in the Pacific Northwest. Again, one of those people, I'm not sure if she got her video up or not, but she does have a lot of garden videos that you can check out. Life on Beagle Road, they are, where? Oh, they're in Pennsylvania, so they're north. So they're a little bit colder climate. The Fit Farmer, Mike and Lacey are in North Carolina, and they have a huge market garden. So if you're interested in that, you definitely need to go check out their videos. And then Just Dig It Farms, I believe if I remember correctly, she is in Alabama, and so that's deep south, so you can check that out as well. All of these people are in the description of this video, so make sure that you check it out. All right, let's see who's in the chat. We have Texas, Northern California, Indiana, Ohio, Nevada. Hey, that's one I haven't seen in a while. Minnesota. Good morning from Minnesota. Trying to grow garlic here. Planting several varieties. Okay, Sandy. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So today's topic, this week's topic is like what you can plant now for a harvest in the spring. Now, I'm not going to go over everything, but I do want to hit some highs and lows. And it also depends on your microclimate. So there's a lot, you can just Google it, what's my microclimate? It'll either pop up or it'll show a map where you can figure out what your climate is. And so knowing that first is going to be a big help for you. So a lot of things that you can plant now, depending on your climate. So here in Virginia, we're getting cold. We're not planting really anything right now other than greens that we're planning on harvesting. Not necessarily me specifically, but just in general. Greens like collard greens, mustard greens, lettuces, especially if you have a row cover. Those are things you can continue to plant now in the fall, even in a colder climate, because especially with a row cover, because they will last quite a while. They can tolerate some cold. Some of them can tolerate some frost. So that's nice. You can find those things now and continue to harvest from them now until you start really getting into the depths of winter. Deep freezes, cold nights, multiple nights in a row. Row cover is your friend, or if you have a greenhouse, that's also your friend. So for people like TNS Dogs and Dragonflies Farm, they're in Northern California. It's warm there. People who are in Alabama and Georgia, they're just now planting their fall garden. Where here in Virginia, we've already planted our fall garden and we've harvested off of it, and now we're prepping for winter. So again, it's different for each climate. Good morning, Kilted Gardener. So there are some things, though, that you should start planting between now and December while the ground is still workable. And so you plant garlic right now. It will not come up until the spring, but plant it now. And then you've got this amazing harvest in the spring. When you are looking forward to those warm days and harvesting things that you're not going to get to until July or August, you will have garlic in the springtime that you can pull up out of the ground. Now, the way that you would do that is you can buy organic garlic from the store, just regular organic garlic from the grocery store, pull off the cloves and stick them in the ground. And I would do a deep mulch bedding over top of them. I do mulch or straw. I'm actually getting ready to do it in a container outside because I'm not sure what our garden situation is going to look like for next year. I've not made up my mind, and I probably won't until right before spring. But what I'm going to do is put them in a container. So I have a big round galvanized container I'm going to fill with potting soil and some compost, plant my garlic in there, and do a really big deep mulch or straw bedding over top of it. So that's one way. Even if you don't have a garden, you can have garlic for next spring. Another thing you can plant right now are carrots. Believe it or not, now you're not going to get a harvest until springtime, but you can plant carrot seeds right now. And in fact, it's probably better because they naturally, sit in the ground, and you don't have to worry about hard spring rains or anything like that, washing those teeny tiny seeds away. So I recommend doing the same thing with those, getting your row ready. They do best in a very deep, 6-inch at least, deep row, or in a bed, or even in a pot outside. Again, I'm going to use one of those galvanized containers, not for my carrots, but what I was saying for the garlic, you can use those for carrots too. As long as there's a deep, good soil system that the roots can go into. So you just sprinkle them around. You put a layer, a very thin layer, but still a layer of straw or mulch over top of them. I like to use mulch or wood chips for carrots, like a light, like the dirty wood chips, not like the clean wood chips, because they keep them warmer, in my opinion, longer than the straw will. The straw can get wet for carrot seeds and get matted down throughout the winter time, especially with snow. So with carrots, I do prefer mulch and the dirty wood chips that are really light, that can hold moisture. We're not talking about like the hard chips that you could get for mulch. We're just talking about like the dirty moisture holding ones. You can plant things like onions, and I was going to pull up my list here so I don't forget. You can plant things like onions. Now I would do the onion bulbs, or you can do the seeds, but again, that's a thinning process that you have to go through. But they will start growing. Now you will have to mulch them more than likely if they start really popping up. You'll probably have to do a deep mulch over and over and over again for them throughout the winter, but still, why not plant them now if you can harvest them in the springtime? In fact, that might be something I think about too. And that includes things like spring onions as well. You can plant chives. Those will be ready for the springtime. You can plant asparagus. Now, just keep in mind, asparagus takes a couple of years to really get going. So I would really recommend that you start your asparagus in the fall. You can do it by root or by seed, though by seed takes 10 times longer. And yeah, so like what Food Forest Permaculture said, he said, never let your carrot seed dry out when planted. Absolutely. And so that's another reason why you need to do like a deep, that's why a lot of people don't have a good success with carrot seeds, even in the springtime, because a lot of seed packages say you just scatter them on top of your row or on top of the soil and press on them. I don't find that very successful. I always find, that you would sprinkle them and then put some mulch over top of it. For Ecocentric Homestead says, for onion seeds, one would need a long growing season. Right? Well, not necessarily. There are long day and short day onions. So you would just need to kind of know your area. They will continue to grow. Just depending on, and you have to think of how nature works too. And so that was one of the things I wanted to touch on. When you have a garden, if you've ever had a garden, if you let things go to seed, even if just tomatoes fall to the ground, those seeds are in the ground and they will pop back up every year. So for some reason, we have this mindset that we can only plant seeds in the springtime, or we can only plant seeds inside and then transplant them outside. When some of my best plants have come from, an example, the tomatoes falling on the ground, me not picking them up, and then next spring I've got 15,000 volunteer tomato plants, right? So don't be afraid to just throw it out there this fall and early winter, preferably right now, so that now is the time when things are dropping to the ground and going to kind of cuddle up and stay still for the wintertime. So that's stuff that you can do now. Amy Jackson says Haas Tools has a map to show you which areas are long day. Yeah. And another one, I get my onions when I'm horrible at growing seeds inside. So I get my onions from, is it Dickinson Farm? Dickinson. I can't remember. It's one or the other. And they actually have a really nice explanation for onions for your growing areas for long day and short day, and then both. There's some crossover on both of them, so you can check them out as well. But anyhow, yeah, think of how nature works. Think of the plants that are dropping seeds that come back every year. If you were to let your carrots all go to seed, you'd have thousands of little baby carrots growing in the springtime, and you'd be picking them all out because they'd be in places you don't want them. So Kim says she uses bed sheets to cover her carrot seeds. That's a really good idea. Again, just make sure your carrot seeds, like Food Forest Permaculture said, Dixondale, that's what it is. Thank you, Philip. Dixondale Farm is the one place I get my onions from. So just remember that they have to stay at least kind of wet, which is why mulch is a really good idea, or even some kind of row cover, but I would still mulch them pretty not heavily, but just a thin layer. Let's see. Let's go back here. Okay, so obviously you have some root crops as well that you can do. There are things like turnips. We were talking about the carrots, radishes. You can even plant radishes now in a lot of places, especially with row cover, and you're going to get radishes in 30 days. Those are things that you can do all year long. You can plant things like Swiss chard, rhubarb, artichokes, ramps. You can do some herbs like horseradish, lavender, rosemary, lemon balm, thyme, sage. Those are things you can start from seed and just kind of scatter, especially if you've ever had a hard time planting an herb garden. You can go ahead and just kind of scatter a few. Again, mulch them. You want to make sure you're mulching them because the ground likes to be covered, don't forget, and so does seeds. And naturally, seeds will get covered while you're stomping around in your garden and pulling things out. So make sure you at least give them a thin cover of the straw or mulch or the dirty wood chips. But anyhow, if you've ever had a hard time planting herbs, then that is a really good way to get started to see if they'll come up, because you can't just make sure you mark where they are, because I've done that before and completely forgotten where I put them, and then like think there are weeds coming up, just not paying any attention, and pull them out of my garden beds. So just make sure you kind of make a map. And we have I should have brought my planner downstairs with me. Make sure you have a map of your property and what you're doing on it so that you don't make the same mistakes I do. Let's see. I have a bunch of onion seeds that won't germinate for me in the grow room. I should sprinkle them around now. Yeah, you should. You should totally do that. If they haven't been growing in the grow room for you under a grow light or heat mat, you should definitely just throw them out there and see what happens. Keeping in mind that you are going to have to thin them out probably at some point, and it might mean in the middle of winter, but they probably really won't start growing until the end of winter when the ground really starts warming up. Let's see. Katie says, Arizona, it is second spring right now. We have had 0 rain. I'm desperate enough to try a rain dance. I'm sorry. See, and so many climates are so much different. So just make sure you know your area. Because like what I'm saying right now, especially for the East Coast, people under North Carolina are probably saying that's not going to work for me right now. And people above Pennsylvania are like, dude, we're getting snow, So it really depends on your climate. So just make sure you check that out. And of course, there's other things, if you want to just try throwing some tomato seeds where you want them to go. See if I love experimenting with gardening. On the property we're on right now, we have a 1/2 acre, and it has been one of the most incredible learning experiences. And there have been times where I have wished for a bigger area. But then this year we had a much larger area. We have 5 acres that we put a garden on this year. And I really miss my small garden because we had made it so lush with so much permaculture design and mulching, and just really built the topsoil that it was so easy to manage. And it grew so well, and it was my experimental garden. And so we had volunteers all the time. There were years that I really didn't even have to buy tomato plants because I had at least 15 plants pop up on their own. And they would pop up at random times throughout the season. So we'd have tomatoes all year long. And so don't be afraid to experiment with different things, especially if you have old seed, like someone just mentioned, having seed that doesn't germinate well. Throw some out there and see if the ones that are still good pop up or not. So I just wanted to encourage you guys to kind of think in a different way. Think about how nature is working naturally. Things that automatically fall to the ground are automatically going to reseed for you. And do some experimenting this year, because you might be surprised that you get an earlier harvest next year. Things start growing when they're supposed to start growing. The one thing people like for tomatoes, for example, a lot of people try to rush tomatoes, and they put them under a grow light and on a heat mat, and then suddenly in the springtime they put them out and the frost kills their plants, because like this year we had a really late frost. I think it was even after Mother's Day. It was late, really late, and it got a lot of people's plants. And so the thing about tomatoes is that you can give them light and heat, but it's not going to make them any stronger or any better. If you were to start them in, say, a greenhouse for my climate in the beginning of March or towards the end of March, the plants that you planted in the greenhouse in March are going to be the same size as the plants that you planted in January under a grow light and heat mat. Except your ones that you grew inside are going to be leggy, and the ones that you waited until 2 months later to grow in the greenhouse in March, just giving it a little bit of a boost, are going to be the same size. So just think about how nature is working. Tomatoes especially go by sunlight and heat. And so if your days are not long enough and your weather is not warm enough, they're not going to grow. So what's the harm in sticking some seeds out there and seeing what happens? So I just wanted to encourage you, kind of inspire you to maybe think of a different way to garden this year. If we had a permanent garden space, that's exactly what I would be doing out there right now. But I am going to get some garlic in the ground, not in the ground, but in a container. And that's what you can do too. You know, if you have container gardening to get done, you can do that as well. All right, that is it from me this week. I think I've talked enough, right? Don't forget to check out the collaborators in the description of this video. Hey, don't forget about our 2021 planner. I meant to bring it down here with us. I only have about 70 copies left of this first print run. So if you want to get a copy, go to the website, homesteadsofamerica.com, and get your copy now, because I'm hoping to do a second print run, but I just need to move out these last, 70 or so before I do that. You can plan out your whole garden. You can plan out your livestock for the year. It has so much information, and I list all that information on the website. So make sure that you do check it out, because it's a very good opportunity to trying to fix my light here, to plan your homestead, even if you just have a small homestead, and to keep track of things on your homestead and in your family. It's pretty cool. Also, don't forget to check out the 2020 conference if you have not already. So last week was the last week to watch it, kind of as a ticket holder. So now you can watch it as a VIP member. If you are already a VIP member, go check it out in your dashboard. If you're not already a VIP member, you can become one online. Again, all that information is on our website, where you can click on the Become a Member tab, and it will give you all the information. You can only watch all the videos if you're a VIP member. We do have 2 other tiers, but it only gives you access to a few videos, not all of them. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining me this week. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the collaborators in the description. And until next week, happy homesteading.